So let's talk about placebos and nocebos. Nocebos.
Yeah.
So a lot of times they'll have mainstream medical tests, and they'll have this pill that what they do is in organic chemistry. What they do is they go out into nature and they find something that heals, and then they say, but I don't necessarily believe that there's not enough of that leaf.
Right.
So they have to make them.
So they have to make a synthetic version.
They have to make a because the money's in that.
Because you can't patent nature. That's
Yeah.
what they don't tell you.
Yeah, for sure. Which I wouldn't necessarily say is all bad, but there is bad in this. I would say that alone isn't necessarily all bad, but
For sure.
that's
how we use it, right?
Yeah, for sure. So they do that, and then when they do these controlled studies, a lot of times they have to do a placebo, which is just like a sugar pill that has nothing in it.
Right, part of their testing
And a lot of
process.
times the sugar pill does just as much as the other side of it.
Right.
There's also situations when shady doctors tell a woman or a man that they have cancer, and then all of a sudden they start showing the signs of having cancer, even when they don't have it.
Yeah.
And
It's fucked up.
there's times of doctors saying, and mainstream medicine has caught up to this. I don't know how much they've caught up to this, but they don't tell a lot of times people that they have 3 months to live, because a lot of times it's like voodoo that they die in 3 months.
Right.
Just because the authority that we give doctors, and what we want to do and challenge you to have that authority and that power and hand it over to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love this conversation of the placebo effect because it's a super great example of how powerful the mind is and how powerful what we believe is. And I like to talk a lot about this idea of belief being another reality or a form of reality or a dimension. And so if we're in the reality that I can't control illness, it comes from outside of me. I can't control wellness, it comes from outside of me. Then that's what we'll experience. And the same is true for the opposite. If we believe like my body's an intelligent machine, and stay in the frequency of that belief system, there is no way for it to not come to fruition. Like there's no way for it to not come into reality because our beliefs are our reality. And gosh, I can give so many examples of that, but so many humans, when we plug into the matrix because it's meant to take our power away from us, it's meant to enslave us, blah 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 blah. And so when we're plugged into this system where we don't necessarily recognize we're constantly giving our power away, we're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. We're fulfilling what we believe, and that's just, it keeps happening. I get asked often, how have you accomplished so many things in your life? I look pretty young for my age, but people say that to me, and you know what? The truth of the matter is, I believed that those things would happen for me, and I didn't focus on a timeline. I used to when I was younger, and then you get older, you get a little bit more wiser, and you're like, okay, divine timing.
Some do, some don't.
Right.
Some do, some don't.
Right,
yeah.
right. And so all the things I've ever dreamed of, all the things I've ever desired to accomplish, they've all happened, maybe slightly different than maybe would have envisioned, but so self-fulfilling prophecy is very, very powerful. So going back to this health conversation, when we inherently believe and we're living in fear does something really powerful to our body and our nervous system too. So we're living in that, we're constantly programming our nervous system that it needs to be on high alert, and it can never really go into the state of like what we would imagine we do when we're feeling really positive, where we could be elated, we could feel joy. Similarly, our body experiences that, but it experiences that in the way that it can grow and develop. So it's really powerful, our
So,
thoughts.
so one of the things I wanted to go into, and I want to go back to the Luigi story of something is the pandemic, because I was saying for the longest time that I didn't feel government really cared about lives. So when COVID happened, I was like, I don't know about this, but I was kind of coming from a place I don't know. I wasn't like forcing anything. I was prepared for something to happen 20 years before COVID happened, but I still didn't sit from my ivory tower saying I knew this was going to happen. I just was prepared. That's all I could say. So one of the things that I said early on is like I don't know. But one of the things is when I felt the government all of a sudden saying that they had power. So I had one of the things that I did was I framed the pandemic as COVID and the response to COVID.
Right.
So nobody ever accused me of being an anti-vaxxer, even though I chose not to do that because I wasn't bashing the vaccine. I was just telling them that I chose not to do it because I wanted to take responsibility for what my cells are doing in this.
For sure.
And I wanted to channel into the antidote naturally for that.
For sure.
But also I acknowledge that everybody can't do that. There's certain things that I could do that people can do, but they're not willing to like even take the first step of what I do.
For sure, exactly that part.
To that extent. So what was your experience during COVID and do you think that fear killed more people during the pandemic than COVID?
That's such a great question. You know what? I have refrained from this conversation.
Okay.
Because a lot of the things that I do talk about are a bit on the controversial end of the spectrum. And so because there were so many people that were so immersed in fear, so immersed in like grieving type of emotion, that to even talk about this topic during the time when it was happening was like, I learned really quickly I need to keep my mouth shut because I'm triggered.
How about now that emotions aren't bad, how about if I reframe the question?
Yeah.
Say there was something in the future that was a pandemic and let's call it COVID. And in the COVID, do you think that if COVID was as real as the government said and the politicians said, do you think you would be better being in paranoia and fear or in a sovereign nature, taking care of your responsibility, getting sunlight, eating better food, working out? Which one would be better, fear or being a sovereign individual working and moving?
Well, we know the answer to that one, don't we?
What is it? Inform us.
You know, here's the thing. I'll just share a little knowledge, from a scientific perspective, and then I'll go to the metaphysical, spiritual perspective. Fear literally activates your nervous system. It activates a very inner part of your brain that's the fight or flight. So it's like literally fear is meant to create the hormones to like get us running away from that scary ass bear that wants to eat us, you know? So fear is an animalistic experience that's good for survival. But what we know is that the powers that be or people who have power and control have been using fear as a weapon for a very long time.
Divide and conquer.
It
could be a lot of things. So.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, in my humble opinion, fear in any shape or form, unless you are in a survival situation, meaning your life is literally on the line, then that it's not helpful for you. Okay, now let's go back to this idea of a deadly virus, right?